Yo, good morning, class, or evening, or whatever level it is for you all. We're here today to talk about code from class 1023. We're here today to talk about objects. So we're going to go to course notes here real fast. We're going to open those up. And then we're also going to go to course examples real fast. And check this out. Objects, multiple objects in motion. Cool. All right. Easy stuff today. All right, and then there is a set of notes here on objects way down here. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this to you all, because usually what I do is I drag a red chair in front of you all. Let's try this. I've got my handy tablet here. And we'll go ahead and open up Krita, because I'll probably draw on a bit today anyway. And really the description that we have up there is a great way to start this. Object are a way to store a set of related variables. We've already stored related variables once before. And if I was in class, I would ask you how we did this before, but since I'm not in class, we're going to be a little bit more efficient about this. Before we stored variables in an array, right? So we stored variables like this, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, or, like different numbers, right? So number. I actually, whatever. The upload process for this is a pain in the butt, and I was tempted to just stream it for you all. All right, so number. So that's one way. This is kind of like a collection, right? A collection, of course, indicates that these are all similar things. They're all similar in terms of they're all numbers, they're all names, they're all types of dogs, or they're all whatever sort of stuff. There's another way in which we can collect objects or collect variables together or group variables together, and that is in something called an object. The difference between this collection and an object is that an object is made, wow, I do not want this, make this go away. Why does that even exist on my computer? An object is made to describe something. So in class, I like to draw, to drag up in front of you all one of those like really gross red chairs, right? So I'm going to draw one of those red chairs. And then it's got that black background, right? So it's got the black background. It's got some wheels. Wheel. This looks like a chair that you would definitely sit on. Definitely more so if it had a big smile. Sit on me. All right, so I would drag one of those chairs in front of you all. And I would say, let's describe this. There's some properties of this chair, right? It's got a color. It's got a color of red. So it's got a color of red. It has a number of wheels. Wheels. 5, right? It has a height, maybe, of, let's assume this chair is 2 meters, whatever that is. It's got a height of 2. It could have a weight, right? It could have an age, all sorts of things. So the difference between the type of collecting a variable that we've done before and what we've done now is that with an array, we do similar. With an object, we do related. Related and descriptive. Not like this is meant for you to be able to read it all. But that's the difference, is that an array is a whole bunch of things that are similar, of a bunch of trees, a bunch of cars, a bunch of shoes, a bunch of whatever. Down here, it's things that help me define an object, define a thing, right? So here we've defined a chair. We could also define a human. We could define a single car. We could define a company. We could define a pair of gloves, right? All those things have particular properties that make them up that are particularly important, that could be important to us as a programmer. And that's really all an object is. An object is the thing that defines something. And that's how it differs from array. Array is plural. Object is, again, fairly singular. So let's hop into the code now, or let's hop into some code and talk through this in the context of code. Objects lecture. And I'm not at school, so I'm going to have to, yeah, GeForce Experience. This is not a video game. We're gonna have to recreate some of the structure here. So we'll make an index, we will make a JS, we will make an app.js inside of it. And we will do our linking inside of index here. So, no, don't want settings yet. Although I'm gonna keep an eye on this presentation here. Head, body. No, it doesn't look terrible. I think that's readable for you all. We will zoom in just once. There. All right, and then we'll link in our JavaScript. So script src js / app.js. Close that script off. Cool. And we're not going to do anything for the HTML right now at the very least. So let's hop inside of app.js. And we're going to go ahead and just play with an object. The way we make an object is like we make anything inside of JavaScript. We type that var keyword, so var space. And let's define my pair of running shoes. So shoes, or how about a singular shoe? Shoe equals. And then we're going to write curly brackets. Now this is going to be sort of strange to you all because you're used to curly brackets in the context of a code block. You're used to it with an if statement or a for loop or a function. I feel like there's one other context you've been exposed to that I can't think of right now, but you're used to it like holding a bunch of code. Curly brackets can also denote in JavaScript, if I'm putting it into a variable, an object that we're defining. So we can define all the properties of these shoes. There are some things that make up these shoes that's important for us. So I could say the shoes have a color, right? Their shoes color is in fact white. So I'll give the shoes a color. The shoes had a price. I don't know how much these shoes cost me, but we're gonna guess that they cost around 30 bucks. So $30 for those shoes. I guess we'll do plural shoes. I don't like that mostly because, how about pair of shoes? Now it's singular. What's about these shoes? These shoes have a type. They are running shoes. And these shoes have, are they used? Right, we'll actually do a Boolean. And yes, they are. I've used them a few times. I don't run in them because I hate to run, but they're running shoes and I've used them for walking. So this is an object here. You might see objects defined in different ways inside of JavaScript. We've done it this way before. Oh, and I'm beginning to remember all the other fun stuff that we used to do with this. That's actually really good. Cool. You might also see them defined like that too. That's fine and acceptable. You can do them either way. So this is part one. How do you define an object? Well, you do var, the name of your object, equals curly brackets. And then inside of there, you write the property, colon, some value that goes in that property. If you want more, you do a comma. Property, colon, a value, comma, property, colon, a value, comma, until you're done. So that's part one. You've made an object, you put some values in there. Let's just do a quick console.log here on this pair of shoes and see what it looks like when we run this inside of Chrome. So I'm gonna reveal this in Explorer. Get this to pop open in Chrome, open up our developer tools, and we'll see in the developer tools there's this one thing here that says object. If I drop that down, you're going to see those exact same properties again. So if you log out a object in JavaScript, you get that object. You get all the properties. You can expect it and see what's inside of there. So the next question is, how do I get to these properties? You've actually been doing this since day one in this class. To get to, say, color, you could write pair of shoes.color. You use this thing called the dot operator, and the dot operator lets you navigate down into the individual properties that you are inspecting or looking for. So now if I look at this console log, and I come back here and refresh that page, I know it looks kind of weird since I refreshed the page, but it's actually not up. I'm just going to get the word white because that's what's coming from the pair of shoes.color. It's completely fine and acceptable for me to write any of those things. I could write pair of shoes.price. I could write pair of shoes.type. And then if I run it again, well, the type of those shoes is running and that matches up. They're connected there. So that's part one of the dot operator. Now, every single thing inside of this object here is actually a variable. So I can manipulate them as variables. Let's say that I screwed up, or I'm letting my user do some input here too. So I messed up in some way and I need to actually fix that. I'm going to not console just yet. I'm going to change that color or type. So pair of shoes dot type. They were actually dress shoes the whole time. Whoops. Well, they're variables, which means it's also acceptable for me to use the assignment operator with them. I can do an equal sign and say pair of shoes dot type equals dress. And now if I do a console log down here, and I'll go ahead and prepend a before, and then plus, and then we'll prepend an after down here. Oops, that should have the word after. I come back and refresh. Pair of shoes dot type. Get some spaces in here too, so it doesn't look so gross. Before, they were running because the running was coming from the very start of this application. I changed the type on line 10, I log it out again. After, they are dress shoes. So again, and if I console log that whole variable, pair of shoes, and I come back here and refresh this, you'll see that that object has color white, type 30, or price 30, type dress, I use true. I've overwritten the original value inside of there, and I've written it now dress. So I'm manipulating those values and changing those values as it runs. That's the basics of objects. I recommend that you sit down and study it in the book, and you study it here also. We're going to, and you've got all the notes here that kind of show you that. We're going to be hitting, and this is literally, I've just given you the first half of these notes. We're going to be hitting the object constructor in about 2 weeks, and we'll be doing some really fun stuff with that. But for now, just know that I can do var whatever equals curly bracket and then blah. Let's go take a look at our examples real fast, because I do some fun things inside of here. And yeah, cool. And actually, let me look at your assignments too, to make sure that I'm hitting everything that I think I'm hitting here. Memory, color mixer, objects and work. Refactored ball bounce. Weather visualization is getting out of there. I don't want that one for you all anymore because it's not great. Okay. So that's the beginning concept here. Let's play with this idea a little bit though. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to do something a little bit more advanced with this. I'm going to make a collection of objects. So var, what might we have that would be multiple? How about shoe collection? I'm really on shoes today apparently. And I'm going to do an array here. So I'm actually making a collection of objects. And I've got that kind of array-like syntax. And then my first entry in there is actually going to be an object. So I've got some apparently red dress shoes. I don't know how that works, but let's make this conceptually work. These will be black dress shoes. And then we will have some, what are those like comfy looking ones that I've never bought before? They will be blue. And their type will be comfy, because I don't know what kind of shoes they're called. You know what I'm referring to, right? Comfy shoes. And then color, we'll make a third one brown. Type, and we're gonna do, what are these things called? The ones to keep my feet warm in the winter in the house. Oh man, slippers. Slippers. All right, so I have here three shoes, right? I've got a collection. This is actually an array, and that array has 3 entries of objects. So this becomes a little bit more complex for us to get to. To get to this first object, actually, I write, and I'll go ahead and log this out. Let's get to the second object, actually. So console log shoe collection. Wow, way to go, me. Shoe collection, and then square brackets 1 to get to that second shoe. I'll come back and refresh. You're going to see the color blue type comfy. So I've gotten to that one right there. I've gotten to that second shoe. Because I've gotten to that shoe, it's an object, it's actually fine and acceptable for me to use the dot operator here. So I'll actually write dot, and it's kind of figuring this out. It's going to recommend type, and I'll just say like, hey, I want you to log out to the console the word comfy. Some ways in which you might challenge yourself at this point is to hop into your code, write this, and make a collection of something that you are collecting. Maybe you collect Overwatch skins. Maybe you collect scarves, because I just bought myself a new Doctor Who scarf today. It's on my mind. Maybe you collect interesting rocks, whatever it might be. Go and make a collection of 3 objects with at least 2 properties each, very similar to what you do there, and then console log out some property of the third entry there. You can take a break there to do that. This is a video, so you can do that kind of stuff. Isn't that awesome and super rad? I think it is. Now the next thing we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to loop through this stuff and do something with that. So I'm going to do a typical for loop. So for var I equals 0, I is less than shoe collection.length, I plus plus. We're going to do a console.log shoe collection at I. So I'm going to loop 3 times. You're going to see this is very similar code that we've written before with our array stuff. The only difference is that now that we've got objects inside of our array instead of just normal properties. When I run this now, I get all 3 of those objects logged out. When you're dealing with collections or collections of objects like this, or arrays of objects like this is what you have to do is you have to execute a for loop and run that loop on every single, or that function, or that code block on every single entry inside of that array. Let's do something with this. Let's go ahead and write out those shoes through the document. So we're going to do a document.body.append child, not append child, inner HTML. Append child would be way more code than I want to write right now. So we'll just go ahead and do inside of a paragraph. We'll put in shoe collection at I dot type, and then actually before that, shoe collection at I dot name. We'll drop a space in there. We'll append on the type after that, and then we'll close off our paragraph. All right, so we're looping through here for each shoe. We're going to add into our inner HTML for our body. So just essentially right in the very middle of our HTML element. What is the name of that shoe and what's the type of that shoe? It doesn't have a name, good grief, it has a color. So we're gonna do color as the second one. We'll do type as the first one. So we'll have, wow, a black red does not make sense. Dress. We'll have dress shoes, black. I want this the other way. Color, then type. So we'll do dress shoe or black dress shoes, and then we'll do blue, comfy, and then brown slippers. Let's give that a run. Where is that open? Where is that open? Come back to me, file. There we go. It's a black dress, blue, comfy, brown slippers. So I loop through each of these and I use these in some way, right? We could use these to create elements or to add things onto the page, or maybe we're getting a list of tweets because this is how Twitter works. Twitter essentially just gets a collection of objects, an array of objects, and loops them all and spits them onto Twitter. Facebook does the same thing. Tumblr does the same thing. Probably LinkedIn does the same thing. LinkedIn's like the one I'm like, their technology is probably, well, I don't want to speak for LinkedIn. Anyway. So we're looping through them all and we're spitting them out onto the page. Let's take this concept now and we're going to hop into one of the examples we have here on the course example. So if you go to pages and you go to course examples and you go to the very bottom and you look at the chat inside of double quotes, we're going to read to this particular thing. I'm going to refresh this page and show you the output. You'll see that there's nothing on the page to start with. Then it starts to like slowly add things on the page over time. So hello, good to meet you, await, really, await, no. And that's actually at the end. So it simulates as if people were inside a chat room talking to each other, even though they're actually not, right? Like this is just all being driven by some data that we have here. We've got a place for that stuff to be added to the page. It doesn't actually matter. I also have a class here called username. All it is doing is coloring these usernames as blue to make them look more chat room-esque. And then over here, this stuff doesn't look all that difficult or shouldn't be all that difficult for you to parse, right? We've got 3 or 4 different objects, object, object, a second object, and another object. And those are all inside of an array that we're working with. And then I have one other application level variable here, which is our current chat index, which is set to 0. So when our application starts, I have this thing called current chat index that starts at 0. And then the next line of code that we run here to get the ball running in this application is called set timeout. Last week, we studied briefly something called set interval. This is that sister function that I was telling you about. Set timeout is like set interval, but it will only run the function associated with it once. So it's going to run show next message exactly one time after 1 minute or 1.5 seconds. Sorry, not 1 minute. That would be forever. So after 1.5 seconds, it's going to execute this function. The only reason why this actually gets called again is because I do another set timeout. Let me remove that set timeout, let it run. You'll see after 1.5 seconds, we see the Dave's super death and we never see something else. So again, set timeout runs precisely once. We're going to skip over this line of code here for a second and explain this a little bit simpler to begin with. We're going to say current chat object is equal to chat queue at current chat index. Well, this is the first time if we're thinking through this code, the first time that it gets run after 1.5 seconds. Current chat index is what our thing started off at 0. Chat queue is this up there. So if we look for chat queue at 0, we're going to find that object. And that object is going to be copied into this variable right here. So now that variable is pointing towards that object. It's a pointer for us now. I'm going to make a new element via document.createDiv. I'm going to customize this inner HTML. The major reason why I'm doing this is so I can get that span class to make it look blue. Customizing the inner HTML, I'm using that current chat object. So that current chat object, again, this first time is pointing towards there. It has a property username and it has a property update. So current chat object.username is going to be Dave's super death for that first one. Current chat, and then we're going to use that update. What does Dave's super death say? Hello. Maybe it says hello with a U. And then when it re-executes, we'll get hello with a U. So there that is. What is this little blinking? Oh, I don't care about that. All right, so that updates. Then we go ahead and append that to the document body so we can see that. If we don't have that line of code, let me comment that out for y'all. If you don't have that line of code, it doesn't even appear. It doesn't get appended to the page. So again, document.body append child. So you can make as many new elements as you want, but you have to append it to the document.body. Well, it's really funny that I actually don't even put it into this chat box. You have to append it to something, either something you've queried selector for or the document.body for it to appear. Next, we do current chat index ++. And let me return to the set timeout. So we say, hey, current chat index ++. So now current chat index is 1 after it shows Dave X super death. Current chat index will be 1. And then we say, oh, hey, wait between 7/10 of a second and almost 4 seconds, right? 3.7 seconds. Wait between that amount of time and then run this exact function that you're in again. So run that whole function again for me, please. So that set timeout then waits and then it executes again. So hello, waits, execute again, hello, waits, executes again. Every single time we're progressing forward in that current chat index. So we do that, then we do that, then we do that, then we do that. Awesome, because each time current chat index ++, it shows that one the next time because we're copying it over using current chat index. Then ++, it'll copy that over. Then ++, it will copy that over. Now we can return to this final line of code here if current chat index is less than chat queue.length. If I get rid of this if statement and its associated curly bracket at the very bottom, we're actually still going to get the exact same output, but we're also going to get an error pop up. So let's get it to that fourth. And then once we were going to see a fifth, there should be an error. Yep. Cannot read property username of undefined. Essentially what's happening without this if statement is that we still point towards another object. So we point there with 0, current chat index of 0, and then current chat index of 1, and then current chat index of 2, and then current chat index of 3. And then current chat index of 4 points towards something that would be here but doesn't exist. And so we still copy it over, but it's pointing towards nothing. And then we try to use nothing down there, and it causes an error, which for us isn't a huge deal, but I wanted to show you how to catch it. And so here I write if current chat index is less than chat queue.length. Chat queue.length is 4. So as long as it's 0, 1, 2, or 3, this if statement is going to return true and execute. But the moment it hits 4, which is out of bounds for that array, it's going to cease execution. Awesome. That's my introduction to objects. That gives you a lot of the thinking material that you need for your homework. You have 3 pieces of homework that you'll need to deal with for this class. Number 1, I want you to take the ball bounce that we did and delete the x, y, velocity x, and velocity y instead, and refactor it with an object now. So you should make an object called position, and you should also make an object called velocity for storing those. So rewrite that. It should be fairly simple for you using those objects instead of high-level variables. Number 2, I want you to make something called stoplight, and this is going to be much easier, I think, for me to visualize. So let me make a new layer here. The way this application should work, or the way it should look, is it should be essentially one div on the page. And by the way, it doesn't have to be stoplight colors. I just described it that way because it kind of makes sense to you all. It starts off as one color, so it might start off as the salmon pink, right? And then it waits for an arbitrary amount of time. That time has to be inside of your object. So maybe you have an object that has a color of red and a time of 3 seconds. Using set timeout, you display the red and then you wait 3 seconds. Maybe the next property then is blue. And so then after those 3 seconds, it replaces that div. It gets rid of the red and places the blue in there. And the blue has an associated 5 seconds. So you wait 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, it runs again, and maybe that final one is, to be very computery, maybe that final one is green, so it gets rid of the blue and put the green in there. So essentially, you're always manipulating the same div. You're just replacing colors. It goes from red to green to blue, or to, like red to yellow to green, or whatever colors you want, right? You can go like very 80s with it. Right? You can go like kind of high contrast 80s sort of colors. That could be fun. You could do that. You can do a lot of things with your life. That needs to be a little bit more neon. There we go. So this could be a fun 3 colors you could be working with also. The final one is a choose your own. So you can either make a really crappy battle system that has 2 players, 2 sides, one that has a player with attack, defense, and HP, and then another thing that has attack, defense, and HP, and a button. When you click the button, you do damage via this calculation they gave you, which is the amount of damage you do is attack minus defense. So if you have attack of 5, the opposing person has defense of 3, the damage you do is 10. And then display all that resulting stuff on the page. So you should be updating the divs with every single button press. Secondly, if you don't want to do that one because it's too combative, that's awesome. Do a Tamagotchi instead. That Tamagotchi should be an object, and the object should store the name, breed, greeting sound, and energy. Then using a set interval, slowly count down on that Tamagotchi. And if it ever gets to 0, write the words "your pet ran away" to the screen. And then also give me a button to feed the pet. So when you click that feed button, it will say your pet name, so that object's name, made whatever that pet greeting sound is. So you should be doing some manipulation of the DOM also. These things, like always, will be due on Wednesday. Let me go ahead and actually do this live for you, not in person, in front of a studio audience. So we'll be talking to you then. Do the Wednesday after. Perfect. And then when I get back, we're going to do some fun stuff with processing, which I actually thought I'd be doing today, but this is enough for you all to tussle with. Hey, if you guys have questions, feel free to shoot questions towards me. I'll do my best to answer them even when I'm away, but otherwise, good luck and happy coding.